Welcome to Order in Chaos, Ep.7. Yeah. Today we are talking about casual conversation about how culture influences design.
We were talking about cultural versus seasonal marketing in Episode 6. So today we'll be talking about how that translates into what we see around us.
Yeah.
Right.
So the first thing I can think of is how Thailand is well known for its advertisements, right? How they design advertisements. the thing is that the budget doesn't even seem that high, right?
It's not.
Yeah, it's not high, but the effect that they produce is well known worldwide. That Thailand has probably the best advertisements.
There was one that I remember. There's this one that the cockroach beat.
Or
the spray one, the spray. Then the essentially is like they do very well in terms of
the advertisement has a whole plot in itself. It has nothing to do with the product.
nothing to do with the product. Yes.
So yeah, if you break it down, you're watching a good story.
Yeah.
Featuring a product. It's like they go through the story and then at the end, by the way. That kind of thing.
So essentially, so it works on the principle that you are more interested to know. As in, I think that's how the current marketing scene has transitioned. Currently, is about storytelling is now the most important
hooking
part.
the people in, getting their attention first, right?
Yeah. Then
instead of like pushing a product across straight away.
Yeah, I think Thailand was ahead of its times in terms of advertising, right? So previously, a lot of people feel that the product has to be featured. They have to talk about the benefits of the product, but no one really gives a shit, right? So people care more about what you represent. I think Thailand understood that even before the current the current climate of marketing, right? Where it's people understand the need for founder-led branding, the need for storytelling. But previously, people just felt like the product is good, it will sell itself, right? So I think that's the part that a lot of people realize that it's not working anymore, right? So the climate has shifted, but of course in Thailand, right, especially one advertisement that was quite popular. So the brand is me, right? So they actually got Baifen, one of the stars in Thailand, to actually star in the advertisement. But so they had a twist. So instead of getting Baifen to star in a commercial, like to promote the perfume or the cologne, right? They just let Baifen just sit at the side and shot it like a behind the scenes kind of video. And then subsequently, Baifen just asked the director, like, is this good enough? Then after that, yes, it's good enough. So the message of that cologne or that perfume, right, was that anyone who sprays that cologne or perfume will become a star. So I thought that was I thought that was very creative. So it was something that was very different. I think so. What Thailand specialize in is in terms of the surprise factor, right? You would assume that it's going in a certain direction, then they just
throw a curveball.
Curveball. They're very good at curveball. So I think that's the part on TikTok use a lot, right? So those those car dealership that transition from people falling down, then they curveball into their own commercial. Right? So that's the exact same concept. So now the concept is very widely known, right? But certain countries where, let's say in Singapore, right, the problem with a very developed country, right, is that they have many regulations regarding the type of advertisements that you're able to do. Right? But regulations does not equate to limiting creativity. I think that's the one thing that local advertising firms fail to understand. Right? So let's say in Singapore, one of the more popular advertisements by an insurance firm was saying that he didn't have a good childhood. I want to thank my father for being poor or that kind of thing. Something along those lines. But then at the end of the day, it was because the father was bought insurance for him to ensure that the family was. So that's the curveball theory. One thing about such advertisements, right, is people will remember your story. So the advertisement, but they won't remember your brand. But one thing good is they will go and search the story. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the whole point, right? You want people to search something related to you rather than searching you, right? Searching you is obviously a good thing. But if your retention is not even there, right? We talk about your AIDA framework, right? That's very commonly used in marketing. Your awareness, interest, then desire, then action, right? So if you do not even have the awareness to your brand, right, then there's no reason to even talk about action. So a lot of people are only focused on the action part. But you must understand that a digital space is different from a physical storefront. A physical storefront, if you do active promotion, if you are doing active sales, that will convert to a customer because they are physically in front of you. So those work if you have a physical storefront, but it doesn't work for a digital storefront. Why? Because there's nothing stopping them from just clicking X on the browser.
Yeah.
So then the other metrics that measure effectiveness of your digital storefront, right, are firstly your loading speed. Some companies are still using like Webly, which is discontinued since like 2025. Like it's a CMS platform that it no longer exists. It was bought over by Square a long time ago, right? So that's one example. Some of the websites look like they were from a Windows 95 desktop. So those are things that you need to improve, and it's not an incremental improvement. We are not talking about like currently you're using WordPress and better CMS now is like we are talking about Webflow, we are talking about Framer, right? So it's not incremental differences. If it's just incremental, I would say you don't need to spend that kind of money, right? Because you already have a decent performing interface, right? But if you are on like a HTML pure coded things that look like when there was dial-up internet, right? I think you need to change it, right? So that being said, right, another layer that we have to take note of, right, is that beyond regulations are in place to ensure that you do not misrepresent. But that does not mean that you cannot get creative around those regulations. Especially, I mean, this is something that I hope we can I hope to see more of developed countries especially, right? Because I understand that in Singapore and Hong Kong, in certain developed countries where the more pressing issues is getting by month after month. Pressing issues meaning that, let's say, high rental, right, high manpower costs. Those are the things that they need to focus on first. So if they are constantly in survival mode, right, it's very hard for them to see the benefit of an
Being
investment.
creative and thinking out of the box.
Yeah. And a lot of times, right, they know the importance of marketing or branding, but they just do not have the financial capability to outsource it or to get a professional to do it. So what happens is they end up doing it themselves. But doing it yourself does not mean that it has to be done in a not very professional way. You get what I mean? Because with today's age, we have Behance, we have Dribble, where you can reference to what is considered a good design, right? You have user-friendly software like Canva, right? Where supposedly anyone can be a designer. I think that's Canva's philosophy, right? You do not have to be a good designer. You just have to
Not be a bad one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't. Yeah. So why I say this, right? And a lot of people say like, oh, I just don't have a knack for it, right? Especially in Singapore, right? But I look at in Thailand, right? There's a lot of mom and pop F&B. Like we're talking about like very very local, like a very family kind of store, right? Even they can design the menu well with Canva. You get what I mean? They are not thinking out of the box. They are not being creative, but at least they know how to use templates. You must understand that branding is like the whole environment, right? You can have a low budget. As long as you're willing to DIY, I'm sure that you are able to spruce up your environment. That's one thing, right? Especially for brick and mortar shops, right? Second thing is that you must understand that you are limiting your ability to be found by others for collaborations, for opportunities, right? I give you an example. The one that I was looking for tour agencies, right? Instantly, those that don't have a website listed on the STB, the directory, right? I just don't even bother looking. Because they don't have a website, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Basic element.
yeah, you get what I mean? So, like, that eliminates at least 80% of the, yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or there's only a few that have website. And the problem is even some of those that have a website, yeah, it might be very old-fashioned. It might be HTML, it might be Windows 95. But at least they try. At least they have a website. You get what I mean? Like they could not be the best, but because they are the most searchable, right? So for people who assume that, oh, because I already have an existing customer base, I'm just focused on servicing my customer base. You must also remember one thing is that your customers, they will grow older, they might proceed to the next phase of life. Then what happens to you? And you are not able to find new
Customers to replace.
new customers to come in, right? So I think that's the part that you need to consider. This is especially true lah, right, for companies that really don't have any. I mean, to this age, you don't have online presence. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's freaking
You
insane.
are leaving a lot on the table.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to like be active on creating content on TikTok because founders. I mean, I used to say if founders have a lot of time to create content, right? Most of the time, they're not focusing on their work, lah.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that myself included, right? But just put in the effort, right? You can always assign it to someone that in your team. Just because you financials doesn't allow you to hire an agency, get a professional, but there is still a way.
At least have something.
At least have something, yeah. So you can go find a freelancer. But the thing is, okay, so the difference between an agency and a freelancer is that the agency help you think of how the entire system work together, right? A freelancer only takes instructions.
Only just execute.
So you yourself must be very clear on your own business. So if that is clear, then you can go and get a freelancer, as what I mentioned in our previous episodes. So the part is you being clear on what you are.
What about like physical storefronts and signboard design? Like you mentioned observing a difference in how design differs in developing versus developed countries.
Okay, so if you have been to Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, right, you realize that a lot of the SMEs they use very like traditional, like it's literally just words. Like the store is literally just words. Like there is no colorful imagery. But of course, things are starting to change in Singapore, especially with the new gen, what we call the new gen hawkers. Right? If you've seen the new gen hawkers, they start to do a lot of. They understand the need for branding and marketing. They are starting to design, and they are hawkers. They are literally at the hawker center. So like it could be a change of type, right? A change of like the economy cycles. Yeah, evolving suppliers. I mean, in a sense, businesses. But the traditional way, right? It's like you would only be like considered traditional, like in terms of like, or people feel that you have history, right? If you're actually old, if you're let's say a 50-year-old brand like BJPM, you get what I mean? Like if you really actually have that age behind you, right, and then you use a very loud like the like old sign, and literally it translates.
Like it's part of your brand.
Yeah, it's part of your brand, right? But if you're a new gen and you use just Chinese calligraphy words, people just feel that you're trying to front. You don't have the heritage, but you're trying to pretend that you have, right? But then people can always argue with me that says that, yeah, but they have to start somewhere. The heritage was the fact that in that time, that was the best they could do. Like that was the trend at that point of time. So when it comes to today's time, that's considered heritage. Let's say Mercedes SL, you know the ones with the wings, the door with the wings that open outwards, right? And it looked like Herbie, right? So at the point of time, that was the trend. That's why currently it's considered vintage, it's considered heritage. But in our current times, you try to create that, right? People just think that you are behind the times. You get what I mean? So it must be relevant to your time today. What is the current trend? And then you must adapt to it. And subsequently, if you, in the future, you will be considered, let's say 20, 30 years down the road, you'll be considered the heritage. You understand? That's how it works. And not like trying to put minimal effort and claim that you're a heritage brand. Right? So that's the developed countries that we have observed. But for developing, okay, so one thing for developing countries is that I understand that there's a lot of untapped market. What do I mean? Meaning that the concentration of the wealth or the knowledge is focused on literally a very small landmass. In Thailand, it's Bangkok. In Vietnam, it's Ho Chi Minh, right, for example. So there's a lot of peripheral provinces, cities, or states, right, that have not gained exposure. So that's why it's the first mover advantage. So that's when a good design or an established brand, right, makes more sense. You get where I'm coming from? Because when you have good design, you have good branding, right, you'll be the top of mind choice when for people that are choosing your particular service, because they do not already have existing choice. So the argument against like why developed countries don't do as much, right, is because in developed countries people are very exposed. I mean, we talk about exposure, not educated, but like just exposure. They have quite exposure to existing leaders in the brand category. So that's why it's very hard to capture market share just because you are doing good branding or good design. That's the assumption, right? But you must understand also that everyone started from somewhere. Look at Daniel Wellington. Somehow they just blow up with nano influencer, right? Even though they are not a heritage brand, they are fighting against what established brands. Like we are talking about brands that have been around since, the Swiss brands that have been around since don't know when, right? So just because there is established brand leader, established leader in the market, and back then for Circles Life it was Singtel lah, right? In the telco market in Singapore, Singtel was the leader, but Circles Life came in and disrupted the market, right? But how did they do it? It wasn't just because their product was good. It's because their interface. They came out with the app to let you adjust your
Control your plans.
control your plans, your roamings, allow you to buy new phones, recontract, all that kind of stuff, right? So was it innovating a new product altogether? No, right? It was an existing product that people needed. They just found a new way to angle it. Doesn't mean that just because this is an established category doesn't mean I must stick to the established. Let's say what are common assumptions with product categories? I won't even say product categories, like in terms of, let's say, F&B, right? So a lot of people feel that I'm doing a very traditional dish. I need to have a very traditional storefront, right? Then I have to have the very vintage feel or the very
old coffee shop vibes.
coffee shop vibes, right? But is that necessarily true? No, not really. Yeah, not really. It's depend on like how you're able to innovate lah. I'm not in the F&B field, so I cannot give a very comprehensive analysis, right? But that's just my belief that it doesn't mean that you're in a established product category in a mature market that you must stick to what is tried and tested, right? Of course, don't go totally opposite direction of what is tried and tested, right? So I think that's the part that a lot of people that are trying to innovate, I'm asking you to innovate, not to just go against the tide, So you're riding the tide, but then the direction that you want to go is like you can pivot, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but just don't go against it. Yeah, I think that's the part that business owners in developed countries should know, right, compared to developing.
Okay, so that was episode 7 of Order in Chaos. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Cheers.